and we are going to get started. If you are here for the Durham County Nonprofit Agency Funding Program virtual information session, then you are in the right place. We can, I think, start with a couple of housekeeping items, and you can switch to the next slide. We are recording this session. We hope we'll be able to share that with folks who are not able to attend. You have entered on mute, and please mute yourself if you are not speaking. During the session, we would love it if you would type your questions in the chat box, and we're going to keep track of those, and we will answer your written and also give you an opportunity to ask additional questions live after those other questions are answered. And we appreciate that you're here, and I'm going to turn this over to Keith Lane, who's going to start us off.
Good evening, folks. As Donna just said, my name is Keith Lane. I'm the budget director for Durham County, and we have several people online from the county. Donna Rewalt from Cooperative Extension Services, David Ades, assistant budget director, Andy Miracle, economic development director, head of economic development, we'll put it that way. Kate Elander, Drew Cummings, and we may have some more from our office that I can't see. We call those folks, most of these folks, the most important folks from the county side are subject matter experts in the 4 target areas that we'll be discussing that are a big part of this revised nonprofit process. And as Donna said, we have chat over to the side where you can ask questions during the presentation, and we will try to answer them, those questions if possible immediately, or we will try to capture the questions and get answers to them. I'm going to go through a couple of slides about the briefly going over the nonprofit process, and then we're going to leave the last half of the slides for the subject matter experts in the 4 target areas, or 3 target areas in this case. We may talk about Drew Cummings' specific area in a different way, but we'll talk briefly about them to give a little bit more in-depth conversation. Hopefully this total process will take only about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we'll leave the rest of the hour available for questions of any type from you all. And I hope that will work and be of benefit to you. And as Donna said, we will be recording this, and if it's useful enough, we may put it up on the website. And if you don't know and are a little confused, I don't think you are, because if you're in this meeting, you somehow got to the website and clicked on the link to register for this particular presentation. But on the website, the Durham County website for nonprofit process, there is a link to the application that you can download. It's a Microsoft Word document. There's an RFP, or request for proposal, that the county has created that gives really good detail about what is expected in the application and what is going to be expected for selected nonprofits in each target area. That's a great document to read. And there's also, I believe, a memorandum from the manager explaining his point of view and the county's hopeful purpose related to this revised nonprofit process. Why do you ask, is the budget office involved in this at all? Well, the county has revised a nonprofit grant program that was instituted 3 years ago. Actually, Andy Miracle was a part of that revision process, and the budget office has largely overseen that process for the last 3 years. That process, up until this past year, oversaw upwards of over 40 nonprofits funded by the county, a total of $704,000 last year, split up across 40 nonprofits. We were asked 2 years ago to begin looking at that process and considering how we could do it better. We took a year of in-depth analysis by the budget office, lots of discussion with subject matter experts, and discussions with county management, and discussions with the Board of County Commissioners, and we have come up with a revised nonprofit process. Suffice to say, to keep it short and sweet, that revised nonprofit process has been revised down to support a couple of key areas. The first and most important is we are now supporting larger grant amounts, but to significantly fewer nonprofits, in hopes of creating greater impact for Durham County citizens. That's the key issue. If you'd like more information on how the nonprofit process was revised, feel free to email Anna Hawksworth on the email address on the nonprofit website. We have information we can provide on that. getting back to the overview of this particular process, this RFP process will largely focus on direct COVID-19 pandemic relief for the next year and a half. In addition, the county is also seeking proposals from nonprofits that are working to create more equitable and resilient systems. Given recent history that's happened around the United States, it's really important that our nonprofits consider and explain to Durham County how we can continue to increase more equitable and resilient systems of delivering of services to Durham County citizens. This, due to the pandemic that we've been experiencing now for the last 6 months, this current nonprofit grant process will be for 18 months, starting in January 2021, when awards will be given to up to 12 nonprofits and running through July of 2022. That's a year and a half. The last process we did was a 3-year process, and we hope to get back to a future RFP process that will run for 3 years. But this process you're applying for, this application will run from January 2021 through July 2022. Anna, could you switch slides? Thank you. The application, again, I talked about the Durham County website. This is a picture of the website on the right of the picture, and you can see that there's, if you were to look lower, there would be links to the application and the RFP. All the pertinent information is on that website. If you have any questions, please send those questions to Anna Hawksworth at dconc.gov. So that email is also on the website, so you don't have to write it down here. When you are done with the application, we would prefer that you save that application as a PDF document and send it to us, so that way you can feel confident that it isn't changed in any way accidentally. And again, like I said, the budget office is available. All our staff will be available to answer questions, as will SMEs, but we will distribute it all through Anna, who works in our office. Next slide, Anna, please. Moving slowly, but I get it. Thank you. The calendar, this may be the most important thing. The nonprofit process opened on the 15th, and if I look at my watch, today is the 20th. The key date, I think, for most nonprofit applicants, the folks that are here tonight, the most important one is that November 12th, 2020 at 5 p.m. That's the deadline. That's the application process closes on that date. Then those applications will be sent to SMEs in the 3 target areas, and they will have groups of folks, including citizens, I believe, to help grade those applications. And ultimately, choices will be made, and the announcement of the selected nonprofits will occur in January of 2021. And most importantly, once those announcements are made and the nonprofits are chosen, the first funding checks will be sent to selected nonprofits in mid to late January of 2021. Next slide, please, Anna. Eligibility. Who is eligible to be a part of the nonprofit process and potentially get supported with approval by the county? Nonprofits with a 501c3 status and community-based groups with a fiscal sponsor that has a 501c3 status are eligible to apply. One possibility here is there's one application submitted for a project with multiple partners. One of the things, if you've read the RFP, is we'd like to see potentially an example might be micro grants, where one nonprofit uses the support of other nonprofits and distributes smaller amounts of the award to other nonprofits, but through that one nonprofit. The second bullet sort of explains that. Nonprofits may pass through all or some of the funds as sub-grants or micro grants to other 501c3 and community-based organizations. So it doesn't have to, it can be one nonprofit gets funding and supports a process or program or services, or it could be one nonprofit that passes through funds as sub-grants or micro grants to others. We leave both of those options open to maximize support and possibility for Durham County citizens. Next slide, please. Eligible activities include, but are not limited to, direct services to children, adults, and families, development of tools and resources that can be used by families and organizations, training and professional development, community-based research and engagement, and planning for policy and systems change. If some of these things are a little confusing, they're a little better spelled out in the RFP, and we encourage you to continue asking questions in chat, and after we're done with the presentations, asking verbal questions to us, and we have a lot of experts who can help clarify some of these terms. And by the way, I want to make sure that you all know that this presentation, once we deliver it tomorrow, it also will be up on the website. We will put it up on the website where the nonprofit information is, just so you can have it. So don't worry if you're scrambling to try to take all these notes. We will make all this available to you. Next slide, please. All right, at this point, I'm going to pass off the baton to Kate Alander, who's going to talk about guiding principles, and we're going to let subject matter experts from here on out continue the conversation. Kate?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. As Keith mentioned, I think here at the county, we've really been thinking about the inequities that COVID-19 has highlighted in our communities. And for that reason, we're very interested in funding both COVID recovery focused projects, but also projects that are working to build more resilient and equitable systems coming out of COVID. So those of us who are working on this process for the county have highlighted 5 guiding principles that we will use as we review and select proposals. And to us, the most important of these is equity. Again, as we've said, families of color, especially Black families, Latinx, Hispanic families, and Indigenous families have been suffering disproportionately because of COVID. And so we really want to lift up equity in this particular funding process. And the other of these guiding principles also, in our mind, contribute to equity as well. So those that we'd like to lift up are systems thinking, considering how systems create certain conditions or issues and how those systems work together, and the changes that might be made within or across those systems to address a problem. We're also interested in considering capacity building, both capacity building with organizations and helping create stronger organizations in our community, but also organizations that do capacity building in the communities that they serve. We're also interested in lifting up community engagement. And by community engagement, we know there is a broad spectrum of community engagement, and we are particularly interested in highlighting those opportunities to promote leadership opportunities among the community and share decision-making power in community. And then also collaboration, making sure we're working together to build trust and partnership to achieve stronger results. So again, as the county is reviewing these proposals, we're going to be keeping these in mind, and we'll be looking forward to see how you reflect these in your proposals, especially equity. Thanks.
Keith, did you want to highlight the target areas, or would you like me to go ahead? You're muted. Keith, you're muted. I can unmute you.
Thank you, Donna. I was actually saying, why don't you go ahead and do the target areas? I was actually trying to answer a question on chat. Y'all are doing
I will do that.
job.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the target areas that we have for the proposal, which you see laid well out the RFP that we'll talk about for a moment. The first is food security, increasing food access and improving the local food system. The second is child, youth, and family wellness and learning, supporting the overall wellness of young people and their families. Our third is workforce development, helping residents in low-wage jobs transition into high-demand industries with opportunities for growth and mobility. And then the final one, safe and stable housing, is ensuring low-income seniors and disabled individuals continue to living in safe, affordable housing. This fourth area is going to be slightly different this year. You will notice the asterisk. We are actually going to designate these funds to the City of Durham to strengthen a nonprofit-led housing repair program that we'll refer to in a few minutes. So next. So the food security target area involves two overall goals: to ensure that all residents have access to safe, affordable, and nutritious food. We know that has been a huge impact of COVID, limiting people's access. So we will be focusing on that. And then also strengthening our food system, including our farms production, transportation, retail, and operations that deliver food directly into our communities, such as food banks and food pantries. So our funding objectives for this area, we're going to fund approximately 4 nonprofit organizations that, first of all, work to increase food access for vulnerable populations, that support a strong and effective food system. This could include working with farms, food production, food delivery, or any organization that's working to get food onto Durham tables. We also, when possible, want folks to take advantage of other funding streams and resources to maximize their reach and impact. So things like SNAP or EBT benefits, relationships, equipment, matching funds, human resources, human capital. So we'd like folks to take advantage of things that are available in the community. In terms of the microgrants opportunity that was referred to earlier, in particular, we are intending to designate one of these grants in the food security area for an organization that can manage a microgrants program. We have found in our work that funding smaller food security organizations has emerged as a need during the COVID-19 emergency. And that we have felt a microgrants program that's administered in the community by a community-based organization would be an ideal way to support some of these efforts. We are hopeful that we will find an applicant who has some experience managing a microgrants or a similar type of program, working with other programs. We also ask that microgrants applicants answer our supplemental question number 8, which specifically refers to that opportunity. So I think, we can answer questions specifically about the intent of this when we get to the Q&A. So for each of our focus areas, we do ask in the RFP for listing possible outcomes or points of data collection. Ultimately, we are going to work closely with every funded organization to choose the best ways to measure success for outcomes. So some of that can also be a process where we converse together if you were awarded, but kind of just to get you started thinking, we provide some examples in the RFP. So things like number of meals provided, number of people served, cost per meal, but also things like economic impact, such as jobs created or number of farms supported. There's many other types of measures, and we certainly know that you all are the experts in your own organizations and in your own work, and we hope that in your proposals you can just suggest some of those things, but ultimately we will work together to decide those items as well. I did mean to at the very beginning also recognize that in the food security area, I'm working in partnership with Michael Davis out of our Strategic Initiatives Office and Kelly Warnock out of Public Health, who also work with our current COVID-19 Food Security Task Force. And I believe I will be turning the mic over to our next focus area.
Hello again. I am Kate Elander, the Early Childhood Coordinator for Durham County, and I'm working with Laura Khalil in the Office on Youth and Carlene Fife with the library on this particular focus area. And with this focus area, I think we can all recognize that children, youth, and families are struggling because of this pandemic. And so our overall goal is to create more opportunities, spaces, and resources for young people and their families that support their overall wellness and learning. One thing to note here with this particular focus area is approximately a third of the funds that are available for this focus area are going to go to the Office on Youth to support funding some of the priorities that have come out of their youth listening project. And we can, there's a little bit more information about that in the RFP in the second appendix, but we're excited to be able to use some of those funds to support initiatives and priorities that youth themselves have lifted up as being needs and opportunities. Eligible organizations here in this area are organizations focused on wellness and learning with young people ages 0 to 24 and their families. So it is a broad area. We're not defining children or youth in a narrow way here. Eligible activities for this particular focus area really align with the broader eligible activities that we talked about earlier, but you can see those here. We're thinking about direct services. We're thinking about providing young people and their families opportunities for decision-making and leadership in creating those services and initiatives, and also working with families and youth to consider the policies and systems and institutions that influence their health, wellness, and learning and how they might be different, especially as we're sitting with this pandemic and thinking about the ways that things could be different. Next slide, please. So the possible outcomes that we're thinking about here with this particular focus area are that youth are and families have wellness and learning opportunities that are safe and that really value their culture and other lived experiences that they have, that young people and families are a part of creating and using those approaches to health, wellness, and learning, that young people and their families, especially as we mentioned equity before, from communities that historically have not had a voice in decision-making, have more leadership opportunities within organizations that focus on their wellness and learning, and that useful policy and systems changes have been identified that would increase equitable outcomes here. So we also just want to note with this particular focus area that priority will be given to applicants that provide young people and their families opportunities for decision-making and leadership. And I believe I am passing it along to Andy Miracle for workforce development. Thanks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Andy Miracle. I'm the Economic Development Officer with Durham County. So we're going to kind of run through high level what the workforce development RFP is looking for. So certainly the thrust of what we're looking for are to help residents in low wage jobs transition into industries with career growth. And so the main vehicle that we're seeking out to do that is through Durham Tech's Back to Work initiative. And so one of the primary functions we're asking nonprofits to do is to recruit, enroll, and support target audience residents until they complete coursework in the Back to Work initiative. So to kind of break down a little bit more of what we mean in terms of definition, and all this information is in the RFP. But when we're talking about target audience, we list those that are currently in low wage jobs that really don't have upward mobility potential. We're talking about employment industries that have been impacted by COVID. So that could be hospitality, restaurants, any number of industries. We're looking at residents that may have barriers to accessing career counseling, to understanding career paths, They may need assistance with high school equivalency testing. And lastly, we're looking at individuals that may have been justice involved and face additional barriers to employment as well. Just to spend a moment to describe Durham Tech's Back to Work initiative. As you can see there, it aims to connect residents to high demand industry certifications in less than 1 year of coursework to prepare them for entry-level jobs. So currently, the Back to Work initiative offers programming, access to certificates in a number of industries that can be accomplished anywhere between 3 and 9 months. Most of that coursework is occurring remotely, and we'll talk about that in a second. That includes a number of high demand industries within Durham County that really have these career upward mobility potential that we're talking about. So that includes a number of industries from IT to healthcare to biotechnology, skills trades, and so on. And those are also listed out in great detail in the RFP as well. So what we're also looking for in RFP application responses is to work with the identified partners and related service providers that are detailed in the RFP. So the total workforce development RFP is 4 to 5 pages, and half of that is simply just listing out all of the existing available resources that are out there. We certainly do not expect nonprofits to be able to accomplish this on their own. So we're trying to identify and point out existing resources that are currently there. That includes a number of services from assistance with high school equivalency testing to career counseling to a number of services that are identified. And so what we are asking nonprofits to do is to connect with these residents to really help support target area residents as they kind of go through the progression. So yeah, as stated, we're looking for assistance in connecting residents with necessary support services. And that those could be a number of things. I think we're recognizing here that, you know, Durham residents may need assistance beyond financial assistance to pay for coursework. There may be additional barriers that they need help in overcoming. In non-COVID times, that could be transportation, but now that could be more technology-based. That could be access to laptops or hotspots. It could be something like childcare. It could be a number of barriers that residents need assistance in helping overcome. So we're acknowledging that. And so that's one of the things we're looking for in the responses that we get. And the last 2 points I want to address are, you know, we're asking nonprofits to really coordinate the progression of residents between milestones. So you could start on the front end, you know, needing assistance with high school equivalency testing, to skill building, to career counseling, to any number of things. And so for nonprofits, you know, we're looking for you to be that support that helps connect residents to all of the service needs. And then also, while we do have a great many resources currently available, there may be gaps. And in your role, we're looking for assistance in identifying what those gaps are and potentially resolving those, or at least you know, having conversation to push towards what a solution might be. So that is it in a nutshell. And I will pass it on to the next slide with that.
And Andy, I'll take it from here because we'll wrap up. The criteria for the proposal review, what we are looking for and what criteria we will be judging are as follows. And that's, does the application align very clearly with one of the 3 target areas or more? Does it contribute to Durham County's recovery from COVID-19? Does it include achievable and measurable outcomes? And if you are concerned about that, We have skill sets within the county, either SMEs, subject matter experts in that target area, and the budget office has help that can help you with creating and or defining achievable and measurable outcomes. Another criteria that will be important is, does this proposal support collaborative and complement other work being done in this target area? Does it address equity and one of the more of the other guiding principles that Kate spoke of earlier in the presentation? And also, does the proposal indicate the nonprofit's ability and capacity to meet goals and manage funds and reporting requirements? And I would like to note here, if you are concerned about your ability to do that, we also have skill sets in the county that can help train you up and provide you with the skill sets and things that you may need to make that particular set of criteria come to pass. Next slide, please, Anna. And with that, before we get to questions, we want to thank everyone here, first and foremost, for your time and the work that you do for all Durham County residents. We can't emphasize how important that is. We can't emphasize how excited we are to start developing partnerships with selected nonprofits, while we also respect and appreciate the work from all nonprofits. We can't support every one of them, but more than anything, we thank you for your work and the time that you put in supporting Durham County. And from there, I think we are ready to go to questions anyone may have, and we have subject matter experts from each of the three areas, and welcome to take any question that we can get. And let me say this, if we cannot answer your question directly, we will make sure that we get it written down, and we will get an answer and send it back, and we will probably put it back on the website, but we will make sure that we get you an answer. Thank you. Any questions?
So Keith, I think we're going to start out. I want to visit back with any of the answers that we've gotten so far in the chat. So I'm going to maybe hop to Michael and David for a couple seconds just to make sure everyone heard that, because everyone may not be seeing the chat at the same time. Michael, do you have a question or answer that you'd like to highlight that's come up in the chat so far?
Thanks, Donna. One of the questions from Casey Buchanan was, so do proposals have to be both COVID or pandemic specific and creating equitable, resilient systems, or can it be one or the other, relatively speaking? And I think the answer to that is that, yeah, it can be one or the other, but we want to keep in mind that this is a COVID-focused funding program. I don't know if Donna, you or Kate or others want to opine on that question.
I'd be happy to jump in there. Yeah, I think what you said is right, Michael, and I think it is a COVID-focused RFP, but we recognize that the pandemic is presenting an opportunity to build stronger, more equitable systems. So if an application is more focused on the building of more stronger and equitable systems coming out of COVID, that is okay. And if a proposal is more focused on direct COVID response, that is also okay. But as you saw in the guiding principles, we are, even if it is more of a sort of direct aid COVID response focused proposal, we will want to see some attention to addressing inequities.
That's great, Kate. David, can you highlight another one for us out of the chat that you've seen?
Of course. Ms. Boone asked, if someone is a member of the Health and Safety Task Force, potential, can the nonprofit be a grantee? I think in general, we're not restricting applicants to, one example that we've discussed is if a nonprofit already has a contract with the county for kind of a different path, can they apply? The answer is yes. We would have to maybe look at the contracting language that the county has to make sure there's no conflict of interest. But as far as I know, we're in the clear with a task force member. I don't think there's any conflict there, but we could of course clarify in the actual contract that all agencies that are selected would have to agree to. Is that anyone else have a different take on that?
You got it. Okay, Michael, what you got for us?
Yeah, I want to lift up a comment from Wendy Padilla in the chat. She made a really great point. She said one of the issues I'm noticing is communication and access. I think she's really speaking to language access and kind of equity around Spanish language and the Latinx community, and just want to thank her for that. And you know, that's noted, and we're going to continue to be certainly cognizant of that and work through all channels we can to work very intentionally to get the word out on this process. So thank you for that. Also in the chat, Delphine Sellers asked, can our application include more than one of the focus areas, or does it have to be a single one? And the answer is, for your application, we do need it to be linked to one focus area, but of course, you certainly can reference other areas in your application. I hope that answers your question, Delphine, and I don't know if others have anything to say, or we can turn it back to David for another question.
One question came directly to me about the child, youth, and family wellness and learning focus area. And the question was around the inclusion of the word family in the focus area, and whether or not proposals have to include the family in the work that they're doing, or if there can be proposals that propose just to work with children or youth without direct supports or engagement of the family. And the answer is that yes, we are accepting applications that would be just focused on children or youth, and there are some organizations that are doing work that would lend itself really to being more focused on the child and the youth out of the context of their family. But we also recognize how important serving children in the context of their family is when that's possible. So I hope that clarifies. We are open to proposals that just focus on children or youth, but wanted to be very intentional to say we are also welcoming of proposals that include the family.
David?
The last question I saw, and please help me if there's one more, is will the session be accessible? Yes, I think within the 24 hours, probably sooner, but the recording of this session will be posted to the nonprofit website, which is where you went to get the link, most likely, if it didn't come in email. And then we will absolutely be more than willing to assist any nonprofit that needs any technological, any language interpretation. We'll do everything we can to assist whatever possible would facilitate an agency that needs help with the application. We would ask it on the website is Ms. Hawksworth's email address. If you contact her, one of the group of us will get with that person and make sure they're taken care of. Another question that just came in that I will not answer, but I will read aloud. What is the biggest thing you would like for applicants to avoid when creating your proposals? I'm going to put my microphone on mute.
That is a very interesting question, Casey. Thank you for that. I'm going to just turn it over to some of our folks here and see if anyone wants to offer something. I think the thing, in the last question, David was talking about was openness, and I think this is a really strange and different time for many of us, and the needs are very vast, and so I think we're really interested in what you all see in your community and what you offer. So that's kind of more of an expectation and a hope. So I think there's a lot of flexibility here with what you can offer in terms of your application. Michael, do you have a thought on this?
Yeah, I'll take that. I think that a theme you see here is that obviously, we're looking for applications that are responsive to the times, that are very much in the really strange and delicate and difficult times of a pandemic that we're facing right now. But also, we want applications that are breaking down silos and creating connections perhaps even between multiple organizations. So I think avoiding anything that kind of creates, that continues silos and kind of any sense of single-mindedness or single-trackness, and instead applying and keeping in mind kind of a spirit of connection and collaboration and openness, and looking at the whole system of the nonprofit world and the various things we want to try to improve in Durham, I think is the approach we're looking for.
I would like to add, Donna, that we have a scoring matrix guide that each team will be using. So there'll be some consistency in the questions that each team use when they review applications. So I don't know if it's so much as about what you don't need to put in, because we're trying to control across the teams with some flexibility built in, but we're trying to control how each of those teams assesses applications. Having said that, I think one thing you don't have to do is overpromise. We are not trying to change the world. We're trying to move forward and help Durham through a COVID pandemic, while also being responsible to improving equitable service where possible. Each individual nonprofit may be more or less suited to those specific things, but that's what we're working towards. And I think over-promising, I saw that or spoke with another member, is not necessary, and it won't necessarily increase your visibility in front of the groups. But the key takeaway is that these groups, we have already built a matrix to help sort of score applications, so it will be consistent across all of them. And I want nonprofits to feel comfortable that that consistency will allow fairness as much as possible across judging of all proposals.
We had another question from Casey Buchanan come in that the target goal is to fund approximately, and I think Kate just answered in the chat box too, but 3 to 4 per area is the max, just because the greater impact is what the county's looking for this time. But again, we're really encouraging the micro grant approach as well for a large organization to help out and parent and work as a kind of a housing agency for some of the smaller groups. So hopefully that helps. We're not necessarily committing to 3 or 4, but that's the general range we're looking at for each. And another question, which I'm just reading in live time, as you describe the microgrants program, do you have any specific examples for best practices that you're looking for to support community-based organizations or nonprofits that promote food equity? Donna.
Yes. So I don't know that we have exactly some specific examples. We've definitely seen organizations in Durham that have used this type of process. Basically, I think what the situation that we're trying to address here is we have over 60 just taking food pantries, for example, in Durham, food pantries that are feeding people on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, depending on how they're set up. Many of them are small, they are volunteer run. They do not have the time to fundraise and to look for additional funding. And what they have found during the pandemic is that their resources are strapped, their volunteers are tired. So what we're trying to look at is there a way to bring some of that money into the community? The county is not looking to fund $1,000 grants, but sometimes for a very small nonprofit food pantry, $1,000 can go a long way. So we're really looking at ways to get some money closer to the community, working with a lead organization to implement a microgrants program for those organizations. We also recognize some of those organizations may not be nonprofits. They're doing this on their own, and that would be much more difficult for us to manage, but it would be much more sensible for a community-based organization to manage that process. So we're really looking at creative approaches to how we might support these smaller organizations that are doing a lion's share of the work that may not have an opportunity to apply for a grant process such as this. Anybody else want to add to that? Okay. Okay, next question.
Yeah, Donna, I can share one from Delphine Sellers. She asked, should the applicant's approach be that COVID is over, that the pandemic is over? I think I'll start and just answer that question by saying that, regardless of where we are with a widely available vaccine and some, semblance of a return to normal American life and Western life in the world, I believe that these are problems that aren't going away anytime soon. And so, we believe that your approach can certainly be pretty much similar, whether we're still in the middle of the pandemic 12 months from now or not. I hope that answers your question. Curious if there are any other thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we all recognize that the implications of what the pandemic has wrought, so job loss, job insecurity, disruptions in schooling, have impacts on things like food security, and those effects will be lasting over the next, probably a couple of years. So that's one of the things that we're recognizing as far as that. There will be more hungry people in Durham in the next year and a half than there are now.
I think I'll also just jump in and say, I think in addition to the fact that sort of there will be lasting impacts even once the virus itself has left us. I think also these times of disorganization that we're in right now, I think really provide opportunities to think differently about the type of future that we want for our families, for our Durham community. And so I think that's another related point here, that we can be doing things differently once the pandemic is over, and are excited to think with you about that.
Perhaps we'll all learn a few things in this process.
And I'll just add real quickly to kind of piggyback on that. For the workforce development RFP, we note that, on-the-job training, internships, apprenticeships are not being offered at the full capacity that they traditionally have been, right? Because of COVID and because of inability for people to access the workplace right now. So we drew out a specific statement to address that in the RFP. We think that while they're not at full capacity right now, they will start to increase in capacity over the course of the next 18 months. So we do want to still encourage that as application services that we are seeking to fund, but we understand that right now that it's not at full capacity, right? And so we hope to get back to a better place, but that's just part of the reality that we're currently looking at.
Ms. Ito, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, I apologize if not, asked if the overall level of funding available to grants is significantly different than the past years. And I will try to not give a budget department answer. Yes, the annual amount that is being allotted currently is the same as in prior years. There's just so much going on right now with the economic impact of that I don't know that the Board of Commissioners is in a position to weigh a different funding amount. That being said, depending on how this program, this year and a half new program goes, once we enter in the next phase for the longer term hopeful next program, there may be different fundings, but at this point, it's still around the same amount for an annual fiscal year basis.
Great. Were there other questions in the chat that we've missed?
I think we've caught up, Donna, with questions in chat, so we can move to verbal questions if folks want to speak up.
I did see one came in about, can the grant be applied to transportation? Yeah, that's not exclusive. Yeah. And how many micro grants will be granted? The micro grants program, so if you're talking about the food security micro grants program, that would be up to the proposal. So the proposal from the organization that's proposing the micro grants program would basically be submitting a design for that program. And they would say, you know, they expect, you know, they may not know you may not know exactly, but you might estimate how many micro grants you see giving, what the purposes of them would be. So we're asking you to kind of design that program. We're not giving you that template necessarily. So we're kind of asking you to give that feedback. What do you see in that space that is needed? So other questions?
Sorry, I just want to make sure that Ms. Padilla asked a question about can the grant be applied to transportation? Did that get answered yet? I'm sorry if I missed
I
it.
said yes. That's, yeah. Is that okay?
Great answer, Donna.
Yeah, I think we're open to that. Any other questions? And at this point, if you wanted to raise your hand or unmute or something, we would be happy for you to do so.
How is this information being disseminated?
So in terms of this process, who would like to take that? I think in a variety of ways.
Well, I will answer that. When you say this information, I'm not quite sure, Ms. Padilla, what you mean this information, but I will tell you that the RFP, the request for proposal, which is sort of a detailed version of what this presentation went through, is on the Durham County website. It's under the budget office, which I hopefully sent a link out. I think you've been there if you were able to get on this Zoom conversation, hopefully. The application is on that website. There's a memorandum from the manager. We will be loading this presentation to that website. We are currently recording this meeting, and we will try to, as quickly tomorrow, to upload this meeting so you can review it and scan through a video version of this conversation. And hopefully the chat will be along with that conversation. We will be adding to a frequently asked question link we have on the website that answers these questions and some of these questions. So hopefully we'll add a significant amount of information by tomorrow or the day after that per this conversation. I hope that answers your question. If there's something else, please speak up and we'll try to answer that or get you what you would like.
And I could add a little to that. We have sent it also out through social media, and each of the subject matter experts has been sending it to specific community groups, very diverse range of groups and organizations through listservs, through our contacts, trying to get it out there widely, certainly by the ways Keith described in casting the wide net across the county and community and through media, but also more directly through the networks that exist already within our community. So we've been trying to do that. And we welcome anyone on this call to continue to share that information, because we really are interested in making sure that this gets out widely.
Thank you, Donna, for angle. That's a different angle than what I was thinking. Ms. Padilla, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I got this information through the city, and that's what if I didn't belong to that group, I would not know about it. That's why I was like, how do I get this information? How do more people know about it? So you've answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think we have, between the two sessions so far, information sessions, we have about 80 organizations registered. So, or 80 people, could be multiple people from the organization. So it's definitely starting to happen. But please help us if there's something we can do better. And Monica says she's heard this from 3 sources. That's good.
Yay.
Monica, yay.
I think Delphine has a hand. Delphine.
Yes,
Yeah,
Delphine.
Thank you, Carlene. Delphine.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. I'm curious. I look at the time frame and I see October 15th through November the 12th. And I think, oh my goodness, that's not even 30 days. I haven't looked at the application. So is there a reason why there is such for a grant writer, and that's what I do so much of, why there's such a short turnaround? It's kind of like, this is quick, fast, and in a hurry. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, there is, and that's largely the slowness with which local government works, particularly when there's been a pandemic distraction. Honestly, this is it, the time crunch is all on the county. The Board of County Commissioners wanted something to start in January, and the decisions made took a little bit longer than we planned. Once the budget office made a proposal to change the nonprofit process, it took a little while to get that information. Then the subject matter experts, most of which are on this call, did an amazing job within 1 month of creating a process and creating the RFP and developing the application and defining those areas. But they all did it in a month, which, while is not really relevant to the question you're asking, left only about a month left to make the application happen. We apologize for that. We recognize that, but in order to get January distributions, we have to have at least a month to review the applications, and we've simply run out of time. That's the honest answer, and all I can do is apologize. And we have tried to adapt the application to be a little less labor intensive than it has been in the past. And so we hope that helps a little bit. We're available. We have resources to help you. Although, as you said, Delphine, you've done grants yourself. You're the one that's going to have to carry the largest amount of work on this, but we do have room to help. I will say, David hinted at, the next process after this 1.5 year one will be much more involved with citizens, and there'll be significantly more time. That's little support for where you're at this moment, but the next version, we hope, will have significantly more time.
I'll chime in just for one brief second, Ms. Sellers, and I think Ms. Buchanan. This process is hopefully nowhere near as rigorous as a more formal grant process that I'm assuming you're referring to. We're hoping that this is a more straightforward. We, believe it or not, even when you read the application, we tried to streamline it and make the questions pretty specific, as opposed to trying to catch everything. We're not asking for 10 years of history of the nonprofit. We're just trying to get to the point of what it is, the impact you're doing. So I hope, while the time is restricted, we hope it's not quite as arduous as some of the other applications you may have experienced in the past.
Yeah. And also, Delphine, there are several groups who are trying to provide assistance and just don't have the resources that they need right now. And so I think this turnaround time will really help those groups to get access to needed funds.
Oh, no, I'm thankful for the opportunity, but I'm just one of those people, when I have a question and I need to ask it. If not, I won't sleep tonight. So I had to ask.
Delphine, it's good to see you again.
Same here, same here.
Okay, we are almost at our time. So are there any final questions that we have not answered? And remember, you can reach out to Anna Hawksworth and she will field those questions and make sure they're fielded to the right person. And you will see additional information on the website, including questions that maybe you haven't thought of that the folks who come to the Thursday session will think of that we can answer.
Donna, just a reminder, in case you want to go through all this again, we will be having another version of this conversation Thursday. Is it 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock? I think it's 11 to 12. Am I right about that, Donna? Yes. 11 a.m. to 12. So feel free to sign up to that one, and hopefully that one will go off as well as this one. Will go off as well as this one. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.